We work with nonprofits and social causes who are really making a huge impact in the world, and we are a full-service agency capable of delivering video production, strategic communications, and marketing strategy, and campaign development, and web design development, and other technology needs. We're also a B corporation, which means that we hold ourselves accountable to maintain certain values and practices. My favorite of our values is candor, collaboration, and respect, which to me really means we have an no BS attitude. If we feel like you're pursuing a strategy that's not going to serve your community and your program well, we're going to say so. And if we feel like something's called for that we're really not the best partner to deliver, we're also going to say so. I'll hand it back to Ashley.
Perfect. Thanks, Avi. So before we dive into the presentation, we just have a few poll questions to kind of get an idea of where organizations are at in their request for proposal process. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the first question here. So go ahead and answer this. Is your organization submitting a request for proposal in 2016? So just a yes or no question, just to get an idea of how many people are hoping to perfect that RFP process. So go ahead and answer that. And we'll give it another few seconds here before we close it out. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and close this now. So it looks like we had a good majority of you are planning or have already submitted an RFP in 2016, which is great. So hopefully this will be really, really helpful to you in guiding some of your questions and concerns around that process. And for those of you who aren't submitting one, this will still be really valuable information, whether you are an agency yourself or whether you are a nonprofit organization or social cause. This will help guide your communications around RFPs. So let's go ahead to the next poll question here. And the second question that we want to ask you guys, get this here, is what area of service are you requesting proposals for? So are you looking to get service around strategy engagement, around web services like a web redesign or something like that? Are you hoping to put a video out this year, something else entirely, or are you not interested in any services? So this is just to give us an idea of the type of request for proposals that you're hoping to send out based on, the criteria that you're hoping to have here with which type of product you're hoping to partner on. So we'll have this open here just a few more seconds. And I'm going to go ahead and close this poll here. Great. So results here, looks like a lot of people are looking at strategy engagement, which, as ourselves here at Experts at C3, we think is pertinent to any project you're doing to have a sound strategy before you were to do any sort of web redesign or video or anything like that. Want to make sure that your message is clear and that we're engaging our donors in the right way. So that's really great that a lot of you are looking for requests for proposals for strategy. For those of you who aren't really looking for anything in particular right now, like I said, this will still give you some really good, valuable information for whenever you're going to have a project in the future. Awesome. So we've got one more question here for you, and that is just to get an idea here of the size of project that you would be requesting a proposal for. So go ahead and get your answers in there. So are you looking to spend less than $10,000, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, $20,000 to $50,000, $50,000 to $100,000, or over $100,000? So we'll keep that open for just a few seconds longer. Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and close that. So the results here looks like pretty pretty much even as far as less than 10,000, 20 to 50, and 50 to 100. So it looks like a few of you are looking to spend a good amount or have a good sized budget for your project. For those of you that are looking at less than $10,000, be sure to still contact us, and there's a lot of different products that are out there for those who have a little bit of a smaller budget. So this RFP process still really does apply to across the board to all budgets, and we'll be able to share more about that later. So thanks so much for taking our poll questions. That way we kind of have an idea of where you guys are at and how to guide our conversations for you. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Avi, and we'll get started. Again, just a reminder, if you have any questions or comments, please put those in the chat, and I'll be able to answer those privately, or we'll be able to raise those questions throughout the presentation.
Great, thank you, Ashley. So when thinking about the dating game, and you may remember the 70s TV show, we think it's a helpful model for thinking about RFPs and how you might identify a partner to think about dating along two extremes. And on one extreme, we have it's sort of represented by Tinder, which you're probably familiar with, sort of focused on people looking for more of a meat market, who are, you know, a little bit more transactional in their hope for finding a partner, versus someone more of a relationship seeker, represented by eHarmony or Match.com or some of the more traditional dating sites. And these are intentionally framed as extremes, and you probably your needs probably fall somewhere in between. I feel like it's a helpful illustration. The hookup model would be where you're sort of very clear about what you want to achieve. You're confident that your need is defined. You feel experienced enough to be more of a proactive leader in the process. And because you're very clear about what you want and how it ought to be developed or delivered, you may be thinking of your vendor and the type of partners you're looking for as more of a commodity or utility players. And you really don't have a need for a long-term relationship. You have a very specific need right now. And where that makes sense often is when you're in cases of subcontracting or freelancers, temp agencies fill this space. Sort of some of the matchmaking sites you may be familiar with, Elance and Odesk, where there's something very specific. But it's also a good model for thinking sometimes about much larger projects. You know, not 99 designs and the like are more often for smaller projects in the several $100s, couple hours of design work as well. Whereas the relationship seeker is looking really for an advisor and someone to really partner along the journey, and more of a strategic, proactive partner. And really somebody who's going to be more of a guiding partner. And the other thing that might really play into you seeking a long-term relationship is when the capabilities and the relational aspects, the sort of cultural fit of your organization with the partner organization, sort of takes precedence over cost consciousness, and price is obviously still an important component, but maybe less emphasized in the selection criteria. And not every project organization is the same, and I want to talk about some of the possibilities there. And definitely want to emphasize that you can be selective in the way you pursue this process. So with these two models in mind, just want to dive into a bit of sort of alphabet soup of the RFP world. And so sort of on the most structured example sort of model is what's called a reverse auction, and often it's really designed to you see this in government contracts sometimes, and when you buy a home sometimes, there's a very competitive bidding process. It's designed so that the seller maximizes the value of what they're getting, and you sort of put your Sometimes there's even software that's facilitating this process, and the winner is that the party that is willing to pay the most, or in this case, be the most cost efficient. And we don't really see that too often in the nonprofit world. A sealed bid is one much more in government contracting, where there's clear, accurate, complete requirements, usually a public process with one round of submission. All the vendors that are interested get one shot to submit, and the bids are sealed at a specific date, and there's a public process, public criteria. And again, the contract is usually awarded to the lowest price bidder. And there's actually a film around this model. You may have seen a preview already with Jonah Hill, in which he's partner are leading a government contracting firm, and they discover that they are they underbid every other firm by $1 billion, only to realize, wow, they really the sealed process kind of hurt them their chances, and now they're having to deliver a crazy scope that's with far less resources than they now realize is possible. And then the RFI is really designed to really focus on vendor capabilities. What you're requesting from partners is to share a document with you about their capabilities, their awards, experience, but there's no requirement. They're not expected to submit fees and specifics around what's going to be required to deliver your project. And it's helpful to vendors because it allows both you and the submitting parties to filter one another out when there's really not a good match on culture, on size of opportunity, and without investing too much time into really speccing out the scope of a full project. And it's helpful to you as well as an organization, because it's a great learning opportunity. You might be a little less clear about exactly the specifics of what you need, but you still want to start the process of learning about who the potential partners might be that would be a good fit, and without requiring them to submit full documentation and details around the project. So this is definitely, the RFI is more geared towards the relationship seeker rather than the hookup, and it's especially helpful if you're looking for a strategy or consulting team. See that more frequently on strategy projects, and it can be a great way to help you shape and clarify your RFP a lot further. You might really feel like you align really well with one or two of the respondents to the RFI, and then use that material to sort of partner with them, on who you think the likely partners are that are going to be a good fit to clarify the needs with you. Sometimes even in a contract to develop the full RFP. And then the RFP proposal process is maybe more familiar to us, where the respondents really do need to include a lot of details about the nature of the work, set expectations for you to evaluate around the budget and the realistic timeline, and it's much more specifics on the project details from an RFI. And it's sort of best to include this as an opportunity for vendors to clarify their approach. This selection process with an RFP is often in stages. You might have the initial document you're requesting. Prior to that, you may have the opportunity for for partners to submit questions. Ultimately, you may invite them to submit to do formal presentations with sort of a smaller group of finalists, maybe in person, maybe over sort of a webinar presentation. And it's best if the RFP is, if you do go that route with an RFI followed by an RFP, it's best if the RFP is really shared with a more reasonable, smaller group of invitees that not publicly available to everyone. We do see a lot of sort of open RFP processes, and you may be familiar with that from some of the different communities, email lists, and networks you're a part of. And there are definitely firms who, as a policy, just don't respond to open RFPs, and it's sort of different. We do sometimes at C3 respond to open RFPs, but not as frequently. It's again that signal of filtering, knowing, sort of already realizing that everybody invited is a good fit on sort of relationship criteria, and you're signaling to partners that you're going to be sort of more discerning, and also that you have you're organized and clear about, a little more clear about what you need to achieve. So an RFP can be a great next step after an RFI. If you realize you have some great options that feel aligned with your organization, the RFP can help you pick a finalist. And an RFQ sort of could be, it's in one sense known as a request for qualification, which is specifically used when price is really not the primary decision criteria. RFQ can also be known as a request for quote, where you're really looking, the decision is, it's all about price because you've already narrowed down the selections of those who are invited to everybody invited, everybody part of the process at that stage you're already confident they're going to be a good partner, and now you're kind of narrowed it down to price and maybe timeline or capacity. So that's a bit about sort of the alphabet soup of RFPs. I want to talk a bit about what makes a great RFP. I think I mentioned RFPs are, the best RFP is specific and clear about what you want to achieve, and ideally should include a budget, at least a budget range. Again, as a way for you to filter out firms that, and sort of not waste your own time evaluating proposals that are clearly out of your price reach, and vice versa, that firms are able to, you might have share an RFP with a firm that you sort of don't realize are not a good fit price-wise for your budget, but they can recommend other partners that they know are, and that they think could do a great job as well. So sharing that surfaces more partners and avenues to find the right match for you. And the other thing about this, I know we obviously know a lot of partner organizations are very hesitant to share a budget, but the best firms are transparent as much as they can be about what's required to deliver the project. And it's really the conversation around an RFP and the sort of selection process becomes about the scope and finding a partner who's going to help you define the right scope that or approach that can meet your program objectives and your goals, while also not breaking the bank. And if you're able to be, a good partner will be transparent with you about what sort of the different approaches would require, and can respond more effectively if they have a sense of what's even possible for you. And then other qualities of a great RFP on the timeline, clear process and dates, expectations about by when they should plan to submit a proposal, by when they should submit questions if that's relevant to the process, and when they can expect to hear back from you. If it's feasible for you to have a dedicated contact within the organization, sort of the point person for all questions, so that somebody who has more time to be able to be more responsive, and their firms and partners are evaluating your organization as well. And if that whole process is more focused for them, they're going to have a better impression, and you'll have more choices of qualified partners that ideally you want your decision process to be really difficult because you're evaluating fantastic options among the finalists. And also being clear about the project status and what sort of the work that's happened before. I know a lot of people mentioned they're going to be pursuing strategy projects with RFPs in the coming months and year, whether that's digital marketing or program strategy. knowing sort of what the status of the conversation is this a process that's started and stopped for different reasons, or is there past research available that you've already completed from an earlier process? It's really helpful to know so that when people are responding, they can build on that material. If you're able to share either a sense of what's included in the available research or even the actual materials, if they're appropriate to be shared publicly, that's fine. Or if we've definitely been invited to respond in a more informed way, sort of having evaluated the organizational strategy. And sometimes those materials are really confidential, and it's reasonable to ask a finalist to sign a non-disclosure agreement so that you and your board and your leadership feel really confident that your data or your strategy, anything proprietary, is kept private. So thinking about, there really isn't a right or wrong in terms of these two models. And if you have something immediate and specific, and you know exactly what you want done, then you're probably looking for a hookup relationship, a utility partner who can deliver what you need and at the right price point for what's possible for you. And we've certainly worked with organizations on doing something quick and fast, but a good hookup partner will also, along the way, even through a quick project, advise you about ways to get the most value out of that current project. And that might be about creating something that's flexible enough to be adapted for sort of a phase 2 when more resources and time are available to you, or something that's could be template you could come back to, and if it's sort of a technology component, maybe thinking strategically about ways to make it something templatable, or being confident that what you're building is flexible and can be leveraged, finding those opportunities. And it might also be about having a hookup their thinking is geared towards maximizing your learning along the way. That even though this is a quick, clear project, we're going to take advantage of the moments for training and capacity building, skill building among your team that will serve you for the long haul, beyond this project as well. And if it's clear that what you need is a hookup, you probably want to dive right into the transactional details, the price and qualifications, just making sure you have someone who can do the work and do it in the way you've structured. Whereas if you're looking for a relationship, this is really what we want to focus our attention on here, because in our experience, we've seen the greatest results in the nonprofit sector and among our clients, and from what we see other partners doing, the greatest results with long-term collaboration. And that definitely requires some greater deliberation and a more thoughtful research process that takes time. And think about it. You could think about it almost like an employee interview process. It's educational and can clarify what you're really after. The provider in this case, you're seeking somebody who's a leader, an advisor, not just somebody who's going to implement and deliver, but going to play a more proactive role in guiding you along the way to be strategic about the requirements, and strategic about kind of correcting your course along through the process. And also a partner is going to help you, ask for input about the best way to do your project to fit your organization's limitations and structure and personality.
And Avi, I'm going to stop you just real quick because we've got lots and lots of questions. So thanks, guys, and be sure to keep putting your questions in the questions field, and we'll be happy to answer them. So the first question I have is, get this here. So he says, I love that you're comparing this to dating sites because it's so true. And then he says, this is anonymous, right? Because I basically just admitted I'm on Tinder. But he has a particular question in regards to RFP length. So he says, I always feel that I need to provide a lot of background info to help agencies understand where we're coming from. But since you can also find that information just on our website, should we be leaving that out, or how long should that be? So, and I'll let Avi speak on this one. But first of all, there's no shame in your Tinder game here, so don't worry about that. But I think this is a really great question because a lot of people want their agencies to be fully aware of all of their operations, everything that they do with their nonprofit. But sometimes that information may not really pertain to the message in the project that you're working on. So I'll let Avi speak a little bit more on that. But
Sure. Well, I see a few reasons. Sort of some of the background information that we often see included in RFPs that is helpful and that may not seem like it's necessary. You know, even just your mission statement, recapping what your major program areas are, what you're doing in your community, how your mission statement comes to life. That may be all on your website, or it may not. You may, if it's a website project, you may be need to include it in the RFP because it's not clear or clear where to find that information on your site. I also think, you know, you might, I sort of sensing part of this is about, you know, you want to maybe don't include it so that people demonstrate their proactivity in learning more about you, doing their own research, but you also want to weed out, you want to, it's sort of kind to the market and to your own time to, you know, within, people get RFPs probably in their inbox or in their email, and then they can very quickly see, oh, you know, we're not a great fit for this, or be sure, get excited more quickly in the process of evaluating your RFP if they see from your mission statement or your size that you really are, you know, they share a lot of subject matter expertise on your issue. They really have a lot to show, and lessons learned from engaging your type of audience in digital marketing or campaigns. So I would tend towards including more, and you can sort of structure that to make the RFP browsable, digestible, you know, with sections. If somebody already knows who you are, then they can just sort of skip ahead to the budget and timeline and expectations, and others may devour that information. Is that helpful? I think that's what you were getting at.
yeah, I think
the other thing I would, yeah.
I was just going to say too that with what you were saying, Avi, I think that a good agency and a good partner will, you know, ask questions or get clarification as they need it. So it's always good to keep your RFPs clean and concise and include the information you want, but know that an agency will reach out if they have questions.
Great. I would say also, you know, if it's if you decide to structure your RFP a little more briefly, then you want to be sure that you're making yourself more available for questions, and depending on sort of how wide a net you're casting. If it's an open RFP process, you may get far more interested parties, or they, or if you decide to invite, you know, dozens of firms, I think it's helpful if you're doing a more selective process where you're sort of inviting, done some research and asked for recommendations, and you know, it's a more narrow process. Letting the people you're inviting know how many that are people you've invited, so as also a way to signal that you know, you want them to invest time in the RFP, and the firms get a ton of these opportunities, and so they're making a judgment call where to invest their time in fleshing out the strategy and solution they want to propose, and maximize their ability to work, you know, to have their business succeed as well. So sort of a balancing call there. Are there other questions, Ashley?
Yeah, let's ask one more here. So another question that's been raised is, in your expert opinion, have hookup collaborations ever been successful? I understand why you are pushing the benefit of a long-term relationship, but are hookups really doomed for failure?
I don't think hookups are necessarily doomed for failure. I think they're less likely to succeed if you're not honest about how sort of your level of certainty that what you're requesting is the right solution. Whereas a relationship is, if you're structuring it as a longer process and a more thoughtful process to select the right partner, then you're investing that time to identify a partner who's going to sort of set you on the right track and tell you when you're pursuing something that's a bad idea because you trust their judgment. If you're, in terms of technology needs or design needs, that's often really clear, and then you can evaluate partners more immediately on their portfolio. If it's a design question on their, if it's a strategic project where you're very clear about you sort of develop the strategy behind the campaign, let's say it's a marketing campaign. You're very confident you've validated and developed your strategy, and now you're looking to sort of augment your staff capacity and your ability to implement that strategy. Then it could be that a hookup's more relevant. Also, if it's more time sensitive, you may be more willing to make a judgment call internally about the right approach and put the resources and get it in motion. I think that there have been successful hookups, and at C3 we've engaged in a bunch of those too.
Great. And just because of time, I'll do one more question before we move on. And this question is, if a few of the RFP respondents have questions, is it necessary to provide answers to everyone so that everyone's on an equal plane?
I guess it's not necessary, but it's more efficient because and it also sort of permits you to communicate more efficiently, sort of devote less management to questions. You can set an expectation, questions are due by this time, and we're going to consolidate them, and you can develop a document and pass it back to all participants. I guess you might get a follow-up question or two that's relevant to, if somebody who submitted a specific question really wants a little more detail or didn't quite get their specific question answered the way didn't learn what they were hoping to. You're also, I think, the partners who are involved, they might not have thought of one another's question, and I don't know. I think it's fair to enable them to learn from one another's curiosity, and you're going to get greater thoughtfulness from all of them. I guess I veer towards encouraging folks to share them with all.
Great. Go ahead and keep putting your questions in the questions field, everybody, and we'll have some time later to answer more, but let's go ahead and move on with the presentation.
Sure. So, just like dating, you probably have that friend who seems to always be dating someone new, or they're not really ready for commitment, and often they get teased that it's because they don't really know who they are, they're not mature enough. It just hints at the reality that it's hard to find a good partner and know who's best for you before you really know yourself and your goals and what you want out of life. And it's the same for the life cycle of your project or strategy, your campaign, your website, whatever it is you're looking for a partner for. If you don't know what the goals are, what the why is behind your project, it's going to be hard. You sort of have a lot less confidence that you're going to be satisfied with the partnership that you choose. If you only learning about the goals later, or being honest among your leadership in the way you articulate the goals, you could learn mid-process that, oh wow, our goals and sort of the purpose of why we're doing this don't align with the strengths of this partner. They would be great if the goals were otherwise, but we sort of have a buyer's regret that we wish we'd been more clear about our goals. So sort of really taking the time to know yourself as best you can, and yeah, being as clear as you can about your goals and what success for your project is going to look like. So what are the steps for finding your ideal partner? In terms of dating, you want to sort of set up your profile, set yourself up for success. It's being very organized, clear about the project scope, whether you're building a website, strategy, what you're looking for, and defining for yourself the qualities of a good partner. What are your best relationships like? What type of firm is really going to match with your organization's culture? Is there a personality or a type of more professional and corporate feeling team going to resonate better with your leadership or the people who have to be involved day to day? Is there a need for an outside partner to, is there or are you looking for an edgy rock star to sort of sweep you off your feet with modern design, or are you looking for that thoughtful companion who can do the New York Times crossword puzzle in 10 and has very specific technical expertise? Maybe you're looking for someone with that facilitation skills and leading a thoughtful process, getting people to open up is really key. So you might have different priorities of what you're looking for in your partner. And another criteria that might be really important is subject matter expertise. If your audience is unique or your organization's area of focus is unique, you may feel like greater confidence that you're in the right hands if the firm can demonstrate subject matter expertise or sort of speak the nuance in the design language that is going to resonate with your community or the messaging, branding, engagement strategy that's going to resonate best. And so, also around personality types, you might sometimes opposites attract. That you might know that the people who have to sort of give creative and strategic feedback are more reserved, and so they're going to respond better. The process is going to be more thoughtful. If they have a team that's really going to push them to be more expansive in their thinking and more creative and think bigger and dream bigger. Whereas, or you may have a team that's easily distracted and thinks too big and has difficulty focusing on and narrowing down to what's right in front of them. And then you might want a more methodical partner who can speak to that strength. So you definitely want to, and then doing some research about potential matches, learning more. So back again to being clear about what you need to do. If you're pursuing a project that you really don't have a lot of experience with, it's the first time you're dipping your toes as an organization into social media, and so you're developing a social media strategy, you want to learn more about that so you can evaluate the proposals and relationships with more information. Or maybe it's the first sort of major database project. You've been managing all your contacts with Excel, and you're sort of new to the market, and there's a solution out there, but you don't know what it might be. You're bringing in an expert to bring their own expertise to bear, knowing sort of what's out there in the market and the solutions that have worked for other organizations and the right strategies, but you don't want to be entirely out of the water. And then also doing your research about partners who submit and who you might consider inviting into an RFP process or just submit an RFI. So you can, that might be just extending, testing the waters out in your own network, asking peer organizations for who they've had a good experience with, or looking at some of the message boards. And then also get out there in the right places. For some people, they should be really, being out in a crowded bar is great for them, and sometimes they want to seek out a more tailored introduction from a friend. So think about who are the people you could imagine working with, and I would definitely consider an RFI first to sort of narrow down the prospective list of partners. And then maybe once you've gotten some proposals or responses to an RFI, you want to be discerning about who the right match is, and honest about the partner that you think is going to be a good fit. So, what's their staff size like? Are you their largest client, or are you their smallest client? And what's their communication style? Do you have confidence that they're going to be responsive to you throughout? And how proactive is their project management? Are they much more hands-on if that's something you need? And what's their capacity, or if the timeline, and so what's the firm's tolerance for your timeline getting off track? If you know that's a risk factor for you, definitely highlight that in the conversation with the finalists, and probe around what's sort of their pipeline of work, and if you get off track, what are the consequences for that in terms of pricing, or sometimes it's great if they have they need to keep you to, they're going to be a lot more proactive in keeping you to the timeline if they're a little tighter on their own resources, which can be great because it can give you needed leverage with your leadership to get people to consolidate their feedback and respond in a timely manner, understand the importance around following the process, trusting the process, and understanding the roles and assignments of the different people that you're talking to on that partner's team. And then I also want to just highlight that relationships and there's a whole science around developing trust between people, and this is sort of the reason why I think it's really important in an RFP process to build in enough time. At C3 we're sort of less excited about the RFPs we see with, it's released on Monday and proposals are due end of the week. It's hard to develop trust and for us to have confidence that that we are going to be a good fit for an organization, and that to feel like we're putting our best foot forward and we've been as thoughtful as we can be about the solution that we want to recommend. And trust, you want to develop trust over time. Are people communicating in an effective way with you? Are they answering your questions in a timely manner? Are they respecting the deadlines you set for responding with questions? And is the team that you're speaking to about the sales process, are they either involved in the project, or are they just in the sales process? If maybe the primary contact at the partner is not going to be involved in your specific project, then do you have a chance in some point in the process, in the presentation stage, or some point to develop trust with a project manager or a strategist or design team whose creative hands they'll be guiding you. So be sure you're developing trust with the people who's going to be most valuable for you to have that with, and that you're going to ultimately have a working relationship with this team over weeks, months, as the project unfolds. And then I also want to sort of to develop trust, you want to avoid having assumptions that, well, they built this awesome website or they launched this other campaign for this group that I admire. Sort of doing your homework, calling their references, having a checklist of to be sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you're evaluating the finalists. And then just like in dating, you want to get your friends and family's opinion of your significant other, or of someone, sort of bringing someone home to mom is a big deal. You want to get advice, and if you don't have that clarity around what you're looking for or who you are, do some soul searching before you open up the doors to really get out there dating and looking for a partner for your project. And if you don't have that clarity, you can, the strongest partners are you can develop that trust over time in asking for help on helping define the requirements. We often get asked by clients to partner on a sort of a smaller contained strategy project to define a larger project if it's a technology need that we're addressing, or sometimes maybe you worked on an earlier project or have an ongoing relationship with a consultant for some other reason, and through the course of that work you can broach the next project and get their input on it. At the same time, you want to respect people's time and resources, so be a good partner in turn. So if there's a lot of sort of scoping and research needed to define the requirements, like I said, that can be its own contained project, and there are consultants who in the marketplace who specialize in sort of guiding the decision and selection process and requirements process as well. So with that, Ashley, are there other questions we could explore in the remaining time?
Yes, we have lots of great questions. And so just before we dive into those questions, I sent a message in the chat, but if we don't get to your question today, please feel free to email your questions to avon@c3.com, and I've put that email in the chat as well. And we'll be happy to answer your questions. So one really good question we have here is, what if your organization has different needs? Over the next couple of years, we're planning on doing maybe one web project and maybe one video project, but we really don't want a long-term relationship. We really want to just get these projects done because we do have an in-house communications team. Are we less likely to find a good partner because of it?
Less likely. Okay, yeah. So I think by a long-term partner, that doesn't have to mean a long-term continuous contractual relationship. I think it's still, I would still sort of qualify that if you have a lot of projects, there is you get some benefit from working on the first project with a team, or sort of making sure that the finalists on some of the earlier projects are going to be firms that are capable of delivering some of the anticipated projects that are going to be coming later on. And there's some cost savings to that, and facilitation savings as well, as a team may learn about your audiences and your mission and really start to speak your language and have a better working relationship day to day in the sort of communication preferences, et cetera, with your team. That experience is valuable, and if you work with a sort of a full service team, it sounds like you have, in your case, you have a few sort of diverse needs, and there could be some value in having a firm you know is at least a potential partner for some of the later projects on the earlier ones, so that among your later finalists for later projects, or in that decision-making process, you have confidence that they really speak your language already, and there's some valuable learning that's been done that's sort of not a sunk cost. So even if it's sort of several contracts or discrete projects, I'd still sort of feel like that's investing in the relationship. And you might decide that you've really developed enough trust in a first project or two that you don't feel a need to do a full RFP process, or that you want to invite just one other firm to submit a price comparison on the later project.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I think Avi said it perfectly. If you have some different needs, going to a full-service digital agency for those needs doesn't necessarily mean that is some sort of 3 or 5 year relationship and you have to talk to them every day and get all these things done. It's really just, you have a relationship here, you have a contact with this agency, and whenever you need those projects done, you know that they already know your message and what's important to you. Great. So we have a couple of smaller questions just around some specifics of RFPs. So the first one is, what is a reasonable amount of time to give agencies to respond to an RFP?
I think it depends on sort of the scope of the project. For like maybe larger budget projects or more complex technology projects, I think 2 to 3 weeks is good. You also want to, remember, you're not only giving adequate time to any one partner to respond. Not all of the finalists will hear about the opportunity at the same time. So you're also sort of giving a bit of time for groups to even find out about the opportunity, and there could be some relationships that that come to light only later. I think it's a different answer if it's an RFP after, sort of to a more select group of partners maybe you already have a relationship with, and where it's the requirements are more clear. An RFI, I think firms can respond to within a week, or if you want to, allow 10 days. And I think if there's more if it's more urgent time-wise to get the project kicked off, then you can narrow that and just know that you're maybe narrowing the number of firms that are going to respond to it, and maybe you have more leeway. Firms will or prioritize it more if it's a larger project that's also urgent. So I hope that's not that's a helpful answer.
Yeah, I think it's great. It really is, it's really specified depending on what kind of project you're doing, what kind of project size, like Avi was saying. And if you have any additional questions around that, feel free, like I said, to email us, and we can go more in depth on that as well. So another question. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just for, sometimes you want to keep it really discreet and contained, but, partners that you'd really want to work with and could be great fit for you. Someone's on vacation, somebody key to the scoping and budgeting process doesn't have the opportunity to weigh in. So I think be open to partners asking for extensions for specific reasons, or if you're aware that they've sort of been invited later than others, or only heard about the opportunity later. That's something to take into consideration too. So you can be a little flexible as well.
Absolutely. So we have another question here, which is a really good question. It is, when you are talking about establishing trust with a partner, I find that in the past I have had agencies who have sort of at face value acted a certain way, and then as we continued in the project, our values and our project management and communication styles did not align. Do you have any tips or advice around ensuring that this doesn't happen, or ensuring that you properly establish a trusted partner?
Sure. I mean, if you're, particularly if you've had sort of negative experiences in the past and you're clear on the reasons why, bring that up with when you call people's references. You say, what can you speak to this firm's ability to, communicate, in a contained way. And if, I guess some of the bad experience could be around, allowing a timeline to get off track, or so you can ask firms to respond to how they address that and their flexibility. But I guess get as much information as you can, and be candid with groups about your anxieties, and if they should be able to reassure you. That also, it's sort of a risk factor you're highlighting for the finalist and for the selected partner, and what you're doing is making them more aware of what sort of the things you really urgently want them to avoid, and hopefully they'll respond in kind and keep that top of mind in their communication with you.
Perfect. And we've got time for one more question here, and this was asked by a bunch of different people. How do you figure out a list of agencies to circulate our RFP to? Are there central places agencies look for these, or any particular discussions or areas?
So again, if you're in the most ideal circumstance, you're circulating it to those you've already sort of qualified are going to be a good relationship fit with you or cultural fit, and so I guess figuring out a list of those to invite is maybe a different question. You can search the archives on Progressive Exchange. N10 has some discussion boards, and you'll see sometimes there's some discussions of folks recommending others. You can also ask think about the websites you admire among your peers and competitors, or just even if it's not in your nonprofit area of focus, you can ask the communications teams at other organizations. A lot of the firms belong to N10 and probably participate in your local area and some of the nonprofit marketing events and happy hours and stuff like that. It's a way to get to know people.
Great.
And I mean, also in your own research, just looking at people's portfolio, they should be highlighting the organizations they're proud of working with, and that can give you a sense too.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We had so many questions, and we're really excited about that. But of course, don't have all of the time to answer that. So please feel free, like I said, to email me at avon@c3.com. I included my email in the chat, and that way we can get all of those questions answered for you. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Avi, for lending us your expertise. And like I said, if you have any questions, email us, or we can hop on a call, whether it's about RFPs or if this presentation gave you a sudden realization about your dating life, we are here for you. So thank you guys so much, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.